it page by page, the story of your journey unfolding day by day. Sometimes you see the magic when all the pieces fit. Sometimes you sit there wondering, who signed me up for this? There are questions we can't answer.
Today, I am wild with gratitude. And one of the things I am so grateful for is that in a very short time, just a few more days, we will be saying goodbye to 2020. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that, but I do want to talk about some of the things that came forth this year that I call lessons. Because regardless of how you perceive this year, regardless of how you've experienced it, there's so much that has come forth that we can be grateful for. So what I remember is back at the beginning of the year, we were preparing to move out of our building on Parker Road, and we were in this hustly, bustly energy and excitement and anticipation of what was coming next. And we just knew that we were moving into an adventure. And we thought that adventure was going to take place at the Radisson Hotel, which is where we moved our Sunday services. And then we found out there was a different adventure coming forth for us altogether. And I learned so much this year. So when COVID came into our experience, one of the things that showed up the most that I became aware of was fear. And what I was able to learn about of myself was that learning that when there is fear around me, it's easy. It's real easy for us to tap into that and adopt it. And I was able to maintain that solid groundedness. And I was able to tune into my faith, because I not only got to learn how to deal with the fear around me that was trying to touch me, but I also had the opportunity to learn how to support people who are living in that place of fear and doubt. And one of the lessons I learned, one of the deepest, strongest lessons I learned, is that regardless of the conditions around me, as long as I maintain my faith, as long as I stand in that place of groundedness, the conditions don't impact me quite the way that they may others. And then I remember that very significant and heart-wrenching story that showed up. Many of you watched, many of us heard about it, when George Floyd took his last breath. And again, I'm not going to speak to all of the challenges and the sorrows and the things that happened with that. I just want to talk about the lessons that came forth, because we had so much to learn, and if we were paying attention, we got to change our mindset and we got to see things very differently, and that's what happened for me. And while I'm not grateful for the circumstance that took place and how it had to take place, I am grateful for the waking up, that shaking me awake and letting me know that there is something going on right here around me. There was an underlying energy and a discrimination that was taking place, and I was completely unaware of it. And I was unaware of it primarily because it wasn't impacting me directly. And so what started to transpire for me in that arena of lessons that I got to learn because of all of the racial unrest and the things that were happening in the demonstrations was I got to learn that I have a part to play. Even though the color of my skin was a little bit too light, too white, if you will. And I thought that I didn't have a part in this. I found out that I do. And I have talked about this over the months of summer, and I've talked about it periodically on any platform that I have had available to me. So the lesson I learned there was that I have a responsibility on planet Earth. And I get to take a stand and be an ally for those who are being persecuted and discriminated against. And I get to get the education, gain the education that I need so that I'm aware, I'm understanding exactly what's transpiring and how it's transpiring. And then we moved into that wonderful and amazing thing called, what do I want to call that? The political environment, which has always been around, it's always with us, but this year, 2020, we had an election. And again, lessons were there to be learned, to be able to listen with more with heart instead of with that judgment, and to be able to be in that place of communicating with others, whether it was face-to-face or through some type of form of social media, and be able to open my heart to the understanding. And so I would have to say that the greatest lesson that I have learned in 2020 can be wrapped up into one single word, and that's compassion. I learned to be more compassionate towards myself for being ignorant about the things that were happening around me, more compassionate with others because I don't understand necessarily where everyone is coming from or understand their point of view. So as I sit in my beautiful space of quiet and peace and I reflect on 2020, I am so grateful because I learned more this year. I believe that I evolved more this year than in any single year in my life. And it's been challenging, it's been tough, there's been some struggle, but all in all, I am not leaving 2020 anywhere near the way I entered it. And for this, I am grateful. Thank you. Please pray with me. As we just take a moment and pause, allow ourselves to rest into this space right here, right now. We are aware that there is a power, there is a light, there is a love that surrounds us. It is God, and it is good. And it is everywhere present in this moment and the next. It has always been here, it always will be, and this is the truth as we know it. And what we also know is we know that this essence, this energy, this being, this God thing, this Godness is within each and every one of us, always with us, always accompanying us. We are never alone, we are always connected in the divine, to the divine, as the divine. And so as we take some time right here and right now to just be present, be here now, open our hearts and our minds to the message that's coming forth, we do so knowing that this time is perfect and blessed. And so I just let this go, I let it be. And so it is. A few weeks ago, I saw a post on Facebook, and someone had put a question out there, and the question was, what age were you when you found out there was no such thing as Santa Claus? And I became a little indignant. And my response, which was immediate, was, I haven't reached that age yet, because I've always believed in Santa Claus. I've always believed in magic and miracles. And what I realized is that we have created these guidelines, these structures for life. And these structures say that when you reach a certain age, you have to stop doing this. And when you get to adulthood, you have to let go of these things. And I've never agreed with that. If becoming an adult means that I have to let go of my belief in magic and miracles, then I choose to remain forever young at heart. Magic. That's what I want to talk about. Magic. Magic is a joyful intention for life. You see, we don't create our lives with circumstances and random acts. We create our life using the law of mind. And it can be just as magical as we desire. Now, I'm not talking about making stuff up, and I'm not talking about moving away from the world of reality. I'm talking about creating some light-hearted energy around all that we are and all that we create by just simply tuning in to magic. We're closing out the month of December. We have been talking all month about the truth of the divine and how truth is truth. And it doesn't matter what your political views are or where you grew up or who your parents were or what type of home you grew up in, the truth is the truth. And I want to take that same idea and I want to just play with it a little bit today with the idea of making magic. The first thing we can do is we can find magic in the ordinary. We have been spending a lot of time possibly alone, contemplating, meditating in solitude, maybe more so than we have in years past. Are we taking the time to find the magic that shows up every single day? Because even in the snowflake, there's a magical component to it. Each snowflake is different than every other snowflake. The wonder of nature around us, how it shifts and changes, is magical. When I look up to the beautiful Colorado sky and see the intensity of that beautiful blue, that's magic. What I know is if I call it magic, I don't have to take all that time and analyze it and figure out how it happened and how it got here and what made it work and what's the hot, what's the cold, what's the plus, what's the negative. I don't have to do any of that. Because for me, I am satisfied enough to just call it magic. I think technology is magical. Now, I know some of you are going into that wonderful brain space that says, well, no, because it works this way and it starts here and it does this and it does this. And for me, it's just magical. Because look at us right now. You are sitting wherever you are sitting. You have a device in front of you, possibly in your hand, and you are watching me talk to you as if I'm in the same room with you. Now, I know there's a whole lot of ways to explain how that happens. I think it's magical. In the book, This Thing Called Life by Ernest Holmes, he tells a story of a man who was working at the same job for 25 years. And this man was making a mediocre salary. He was not happy with the work that he did. In fact, he was miserable. And he had a habit of telling all of his friends. And he didn't know what to do about it. And people were giving him advice, and some of it sounded kind of risky, and some of it sounded kind of like things he could do. And what he started to do was he started to visualize a better job. He started to think about what would his life be like if he made more money? How would his personal life be different if he had more income and wasn't as challenged financially? And what would it feel like to love going to work every day and to love the work that he did? And he started to behave accordingly, as though that work was already here. It took him less than 1 month. Holmes tells us in this book, in less than 1 month, this man increased his salary 300 times. I can hear the voices. Some of you are saying, well, that's not possible. How could that possibly happen? Well, it's magic, if you look at it that way. And we are taught in this philosophy that we can do this. We can take our attention and we can focus on one thing or one change or one shift in our lives, and we can absolutely create that new life, that change for the better. You see, we are taught that there's a power for good. There's a power for good in the universe that's greater than any one of us, and we can use it. We call it God. Or we call it magic. Holmes says this: Because you are made in the image and likeness of God, you can use your mind according to its nature, and by choice, bring your good to you. Bring your good to you. Years ago, I was seeking employment. I had been unemployed for some time. And I was working with a temp agency, and many of you may have heard this story. I was working with a temp agency, and they kept calling me and asking me to edit my resume. My resume had too many qualifications. My resume had too many skills. My resume looked like I was overqualified. And we went through this, a couple of times. And in the last conversation we had, they kept telling me that you're not going to get hired. We can't place you because you are overqualified and your resume looks too good. And so I did the most logical thing I could do. I fired the temp agency. And I was living with my youngest son, Jake, at the time. And I got home that day and I said to him, I am no longer going to work with this temp agency. I am no longer in the business of seeking out employment. And he said, really, Mom? Well, what are you going to do? Well, a very dear friend of mine in this philosophy had said, why don't you just attract the job you want? And so what I said to Jake was, well, I'm going to attract the perfect job. And he said, well, that's great. How are you going to do that? And I said, well, with prayer and magic. I didn't fill out another application. A week later, I got a phone call from a gentleman that I had actually trained years before in one of the call centers where I had worked. He had a business and was working as a manager in the organization, and he needed some people, and he wanted to hire me. Within 2 weeks, I had the job. The first time I filled out the application for the job was after the phone call he and I had. I attracted that to me. Now, you may be a little concerned about how that worked and how that unfolded, but I have to tell you, it was pretty magical the way that showed up. There are so many parts to bringing magic into our lives. And this is a perfect time for us to shift from the drudgery and the pain and the challenge and some of the things that have just bogged us down. Why don't we lift our spirits by creating some magic? Johann Wolfgang von Goethe said this, magic is believing in yourself. If you can do that, you can make anything happen. Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. Believe in the philosophy. Believe in the teachings. Believe in the spirit within. Believe in that power that is working through you to create whatever you choose. I think it would be a great idea, and it's perfect timing, to move into this new year with the belief that anything is possible. We are limitless beings in a limitless universe, and we can create anything we choose. And we can remove the barriers from our lives. We can remove the sense of restrictiveness. We can remove those limitations that we were told by someone that exist but don't. We can release the obstacles that show up around us. And we can create a world of love, peace, and kindness. If you still don't accept the idea, let me explain it to you this way. Step out of your comfort zone for a moment and do something for someone else. And maybe you do that all the time. And I don't mean to discount that, but one of the places where you will see magic more than any other place is in kindness. Just a few weeks ago, I read an article about a Dairy Queen in Minnesota. A customer pulled up to the drive-thru and paid for the car behind them. In 3 days' time, over 900 people had come through that drive-thru and paid for someone else's food. Over $10,000 came into that little Dairy Queen in 3 days' time. That, my friends, is magic. I have a quote here from Anonymous that fits so well, and it's this: Where there is kindness, there is goodness. And where there is goodness, there is magic. We can create magic in this world. Like a healing balm, it will travel all the way around the planet. Kindness, belief, these are the components for magic. Using the very principles with which we teach. We don't teach to pretend we're living in a fairy tale. We don't teach to ignore what's going on around us. We teach to be aware and to choose our response, to choose how we want to show up. So let's let go of what has been. Allow your imagination to take you into a brand new year and a brand new experience. A place where we each can attract good and more good. And let us believe in the power within us and believe in ourselves. We can create what we desire. We are making magic. Please pray with me. How beautiful this time is, and how beautiful it has been to just take a few moments and step away from all of the other activities of life and be in this space where God is. And knowing that as we move away from this time, this space, right here, right now, we go with God. For Spirit is always with us. And we are united. We are united in that place of connection, one to another. We are all part of a greater whole. And so today and this week, as we just take a deep breath and we just let go of what has been and we turn our attention to what can be, we embrace the idea of magic. We embrace the idea of the power within all things. We embrace the idea of knowing that we are the co-creators of our lives. How perfect is this? How good this is? How great this feels. And so I give thanks. I give thanks for the opportunity to hold this space. I give thanks for the opportunity to bring forth this energy and new and unique ideas. And I give thanks for the very Spirit within all things, knowing that as we speak these words, as we turn our attention, God's already got it. It is already alive in the mind of God. And so we just let go. We just let go and we let it be. And so it is.